This past weekend in the northeast U.S., we experienced a polar vortex which saw temperatures reach record lows in many areas. And I was in Portland, Maine, where they recorded a new record low of negative 45 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chills. As you can see, the real air feel was minus 13 degrees when I first arrived. So, I loaded up. I had about 20 hand warmers in my pockets, and just to show you how much layers or how many layers I was wearing. I had a parka, ski jacket, thermal vest, hoodie, 2 sweatshirts, 4 pairs of pants. It was cold. So I had headed over to Portland Head Lighthouse, one of the most photographed places in the world probably, to see the sea smoke that was forming here. As you could see, every time I would breathe out, it would just immediately freeze on my jacket, on the back of my camera. This is definitely the coldest I've ever been in my life. So the sky wasn't exactly spectacular. It was pretty blue, no clouds above the, sea smoke area. So that was a little bit disappointing. It made, shooting a little challenging, especially shooting into the sun. Everything was kind of silhouetted from this angle. Standing on the other side of the lighthouse, you can't really get the sun into the frame. And again, it was, wasn't as exciting of a shot, so I chose this angle. And I ended up doing more videos and time-lapse stuff this trip, over photos. I did take 1 or 2. I'm not primarily a landscape photographer. This side of the lighthouse is my favorite angle, but again, as I mentioned, you can see you can't get the sun in there, and there was no cloud, so it wasn't as pretty. So this was one of the best photos that I think I got. Again, as I mentioned, I did mostly more video on this trip. And there was a lot of people over at the lighthouse, so I left there and I drove to a spot that was about 2 miles away. And I set up my R3 and my 100 to 500 millimeter here. And I was trying to do some time lapses and a little bit of video. Again, being 2 miles from the lighthouse, there was all kinds of atmospheric interference. As you can see, the lighthouse isn't exactly sharp, but again, that's to be expected when you're 2 miles away from something. So I shot a lot of slow motion video here. This was at 120 frames per second. And but being a wildlife photographer and videographer, of course, these ducks caught my attention more than anything. Just thinking about how painfully cold I was and how these guys just, went about their day as if, it was any other day to them. It's pretty amazing, pretty impressive that they can survive these temperatures. I couldn't stand for more than 10, 20 minutes at a time outside. I had to run back to the car and warm up. And again, here's a little bit more slow motion video. And as I had mentioned, I shot a lot of time lapses, but that's coming in my next video. I'm just going to show you how I set all of that up and a couple tips on that. But for now, here's just one example of one of the time lapses I got. This was shot over, I think, 60 minutes, if I remember. 60 minutes in a time lapse goes by pretty quickly, but you can really see the sea smoke blowing by, the clouds moving, just, I don't know, it wasn't the most dynamic photo, so to me it just made it a little bit more interesting. So anyway, it's a quick video, just wanted to show you my recent trip up to Maine.